Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is your ticker update for the 11th. Oh, the futures market is still raging onward. Yes, because coronavirus is very bullish for stocks. I suppose it could be for pharmaceutical companies. It shouldn't be, but I suppose it could be. Oh my God. Supply chains, just-in-time inventory, all of that BS. What could ever go wrong with such a thing? Yeah, no, nothing, right? There'll never be a war. There'll never be pestilence. There'll never be disease. None of these things will ever happen again. They've happened throughout history. I mean, it's not like there isn't I don't know. Isn't there something in the Bible about this? I think there is. Isn't this part and parcel of the human experience? Oh, I think there is. But, we'll just, technology will overcome. We will overcome because we are the smartest people that have ever lived on the planet. Yes, we are. Nah, maybe we're not. Okay. When does the market start to care about this? Probably at the point that you actually see China detonate, which there's a very real risk of happening. Although there's some interesting information in the data this morning. And I was tempted to put up an update last night when I saw it, because when the day rolled over on the website that tracks coronavirus infections, there was a curious change that occurred in the actual tracking data. Now, remember, I said we've seen these false gods before, so you have to be a little bit careful about it. We now, of course, the media is talking, there's more than 1,000 dead. Well, that's, and seasonal influenza kills 80,000 people in the United States every year. 1,000 dead in a country that has 3 times the population, more than 3 times the population. Doesn't impress all that much. I mean, dead people are dead people. That's bad, right? I mean, let's not cheer for dead people. But in terms of the reality, it's just not all that impressive. The other thing that I think is extremely interesting is that we are starting to see a leveling off again in the chart. Now, remember that I have said before that we've seen this, and then it has turned into a step function where we saw what looked like a straight line. We saw a couple days of declining rate, okay, in terms of rate of addition, not actual declining rate of infection, but rate of addition. And then there was another step function higher. So this, by the way, for those people who are running around with your hair on fire telling me that you think that there's a 40 or 30 day latency period, which another web commentator is now trumpeting is his reason why, good God, we have to find some way to keep the hype alive because we have to sell subscriptions. I think he sells subscriptions. I don't know. But, we have to keep it alive because, good God, we can't actually report on the data. We have to come up with some new cockamamie theory when the data doesn't fit our preconceived presumption, which is that there's going to be a huge breakout in the United States and elsewhere, and it's the end of the world as we know it. By God, grab your children, head for the storm shelter. Oh, wait a minute, you don't have any damn food in the house. Okay. We could fix that. I'm sure we have all these preparation supplies we can sell you. All right. Folks, I don't play that game. Okay. I used to take donations for enhanced access on the ticker form. That was years ago. Don't do it anymore. But never were they subscriptions. Never did you have an actual entitlement. They were donations. You were giving money because you thought that the reporting work that I did and the effort that I put into it was worth something. But the difference is that with a subscription, you're entitled to something. You are making a purchase. A donation is just that. It's a donation. No, whether it's nonprofit or not, doesn't matter. And as I pointed out, yes, there was profit. Duh. I paid taxes on that money. It was not a 501c3. However, the distinction should not be lost on people. When you subsidize somebody with something like Patreon or something like this, that's a donation. If you're buying a subscription because you want access to a specific piece of content, okay, in other words, you get a specific thing. That's a little different situation. If you want to have an area where you can talk among yourselves, or you want greater access to something, there is a difference. Anyway, what we have today, going through 210, is quite interesting, because this latest inflection point, if you will, started on the 6th. Now, this is consistent because we have seen this run in 5-day periods, which strongly suggest that the latency period in this infection, in this disease, runs somewhere around 5 days, plus or minus a few. In other words, that if you are exposed, there is probably a approximately 5-day latency before you get ill. Now, it may be 6, it may be 4, it could be 8. But it is not 20. It's not 40. It's not some lunacy, because the data doesn't bear it out. And if you can't find it in the data, then you must assume without hard evidence it's not there. Now, if you can show me some hard evidence, okay, fine. But that somebody publishes some non-peer-reviewed paper does not qualify anyway. We have another inflection point. This one's downward. Now, this is the first one of these that has been maintained for a full period. That is that 5-day period where the curve has bent the other way. In other words, it is the cessation, or pause at least, in the exponential nature of infection and reporting. Now, it is possible that the Chinese are just refusing to report this. Hey, these are communists. Does anybody think the communists tell the truth? Of course not. But let me point out that when we first started getting these reports, we were seeing doublings about every 2 days. 2,000 to 4,400, 4,400 to 7,700. Okay, then it went to about 4 days. 7,700, 14,300 was about 4 days. 14,300 to about 28,000, okay, which is another doubling, was about another 4 or 5 days. But we haven't seen yet 44. 42,300 is the 210 number, and in that 23.7 number was 24. Okay, that's 6 days apart. The other thing is that when you look at from the 6th, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, okay, with 31,522 to 42,300, that's about a 30% increase across 5 days. All right. And the important thing about that, when you look at this, is that when you graph it, and it really, folks, I mean, you can look at these numbers and they start to snap in your head. And I do hex math in my head. Okay, it's one of the reasons I'm a pretty good programmer. When you look at it in a graph, it stands out like a sore thumb. And as I said before, we had we had a couple of days, a few days back, I said there's another inflection point forming in this graph. But we've had several false gods. In fact, we had 2 of them that were false gods. And then the exponential trend continued. This one has not. In fact, it started to flatten out. Is that the indication of control? Maybe. It is the beginning, perhaps, of exactly that within China. Now, let me point out a couple of other things. There is a graphic flying around about infection causes within apartment buildings and things like this, showing cross-infection between units from toilets and sinks, along with drains, shower drains and things like that. Folks, Western construction, remember white man sanitation good? That doesn't happen. Do you know why it doesn't happen? It doesn't happen because there's this thing called a P-trap under your sink. Go open up the drawers under your sink. Inside your sink cabinet, under your sink, There is a U-shaped thing, okay? It's called a P-trap because it actually looks kind of like a P if you were to come across with it. All right. What is the important part of that? It traps water in the bottom of it. Why is that important? Because that prevents gases, that is the things that transmit viruses and bacteria and all other kinds of nasty things, including nasty smells, from coming back up the pipe. Okay? Now, there is another vent in a plumbing system. And unless you've seen a house with the walls ripped open or a commercial building under construction, you've probably never seen it. Other than if you go outside, you will see that there are these white plastic pipes sticking out of the top of your roof. And people say, well, what the hell is that? Well, those are called stacks. And the reason they're there is because when you have inside your house water flowing down, it creates a vacuum. Right? Because there's water flow and it pulls a negative pressure in there. All right. Without some way to relieve that negative pressure, in other words, to pull air in, what's going to happen is all the water is going to get sucked out of all the traps. And once that happens, then the trap doesn't have water in it anymore and the sewer gas comes back up. This is nasty. It could also potentially spread disease. So what you have is, once you have the vertical run where the water goes into the vertical, that vertical goes up and it goes out through the roof. There's a hole in the roof and a piece of pipe sticking up. Why? Because when the water flows down, it can pull atmospheric air from outside the building, not in the attic, not in the crawl space, not where people are inhabiting, but from outside above the roof. In this way, that vacuum gets broken and the water stays in the traps. It's basic plumbing design, folks. Now, the graphic that is circulating in Chinese appears to say there's traps because it appears to show them in the diagram. However, they also are saying that there's a route of infection between those points. This strongly implies that there is no stack between those points. Or there's no traps. One of the two. Or both. It would not surprise me to find that out. That, in fact, it's just a pipe. That your sink pipe just goes straight down and then joins with other pipes into a sewer pipe that, ultimately goes to wherever. But that there's no trap and there's no stack vent. And without those two things, yes, your next door neighbor who has an explosive bout of coronavirus-laden crap that goes down his toilet is going to waft back up into your house. And since we know this virus is shed in crap, and we also know that it appears to be extraordinarily infectious when shed that sort of way, because an awful lot of people seem to be getting it through that sort of route and what appears to be fecal-oral contamination, guess what? If that is going on, then you've got a huge problem because it just takes one sick person in a building and oh crap. Yeah. So people keep asking, they keep running these theories. I keep getting these things on Twitter and DMs, and there's other people running around with their hair on fire, maybe trying to sell some subscriptions, that, oh my God, the breakout is imminent in the United States. Okay, when's it going to happen? Please explain to me when, because so far there has been no breakout in the United States. There's been no breakout anywhere else except on a cruise ship, where there appears to be one in process. Why is it happening there? Because guess what? If you are shedding virus and you're getting all your food through room service, what is the person that brings the food back to you? How does your cutlery, your plates, anything you might have hawkered on or loogied or whatever, right? Or coughed on. How does all of that get back? You mean it gets taken down to the galley? Is the guy that comes and does that wearing PPE? Probably not, right? So he gets contaminated, And then what does he do? Well, he takes your dirty dishes down and they go into the nice industrial dishwashing machine, which is likely extremely effective at killing anything because it runs very hot water. If you've ever seen one of those things in a restaurant or somewhere, believe me, if you think those things are fairly impressive, you should see the ones that they have in cruise ships and other large commercial kitchens. They're really impressive. And they run very hot water and they run a lot of live steam. They're going to kill anything. However, the guy who just handled it is another question entirely. And then guess what he does? Because he's a waiter. He grabs the next person's tray and takes it up to their room. Now he's contaminated them. So everybody thinks that there is some grand design that is helped by being held in essentially isolation in their rooms. Oh, no, there's not. Not unless all of the people who are bringing you things and taking away things are using reasonably decent cross-infection precautions, which you can be pretty damn sure they are not. And the reason you can be pretty damn sure they are not is that, first off, this isn't part of a cruise ship's normal protocol, what is normally expected of their people. And, oh, by the way, the vast majority of them come from third world nations. That is the crew. Why? Because they're cheaper to employ, and you have cruise lines dodging things like the Jones Act in the United States and stuff like this by flagging their vessels offshore and not sailing between two U.S. ports. By the way, if you ever wondered why it is that they do that, why they always come back to the same port in the United States, the Jones Act is the reason for that, which says that if you go between two U.S. ports, you have to have a U.S. crew. This also, by the way, is one of the reasons that if you ever take a cruise that starts somewhere like, Tampa, and then it stops at Key West, you will be warned that if you disembark and actually get off the boat and don't come back on in Key West, that there's going to be huge repercussions for you, really big problems. And you think, why in the hell would they care? Well, the reason they care is because the government will come after them because all of a sudden that is a voyage between U.S. ports. That's the reason they care. All right. So anyway, folks, the bottom line is that from a coronavirus perspective today, we're in actually better condition than we were before. China, on the other hand, listen, you have to assume that 10 times as many people over there are infected as they are reporting. A huge percentage of that 10 times doesn't even know they're sick. Okay, so you can't necessarily blame somebody for not being reported if they don't know they're sick because they're getting mild cases. The only ones you're seeing reported are the ones where someone ends up in a hospital, all right, or at least a doctor's office and they swab them, which is not going to happen all the time. All right, if it's a mild case, they may not even run the tests. Why would you? Number one, the test costs money. Number two, if you're not showing signs of distress, what is the point? Third, the idea that somehow that this thing has some massive lethality because it kills a huge percentage. Yes, it kills a very large percentage of people that end up in the hospital. But most people apparently don't, right? Otherwise, you would have, we do have people falling down the street. There is some secondary illness problems within what we're seeing in China. And I'm very unhappy about those. But again, we have no breakout anywhere in the white man good sanitation world yet. Let's wait until we see some of that somewhere. As I said, the door is slamming closed for it to happen here in the United States. Okay, we've got that ship that docked in New Jersey. We really cannot say that it isn't going to happen until the end of the week. But as things stand right now, I am seeing some evidence that control is being established in China. In other words, all of this crazy stuff that they're doing is actually having a positive effect. That's good. Okay? This doesn't mean that it's going to disappear, but it does mean that they are starting to get a handle on this, even though they have to do draconian things in order to get there from here. If they try to go back to work and relax them because, good God, the Communist Party is not going to put its nuts on the line and possibly have a mass revolt and end up dead, which, by the way, they are going to do. They're going to go back to work. It may just pop right back up, okay? I don't think this thing's done in China by any stretch of the imagination. I think it is going to be devastating in some other parts of the world. But I also, right now, my operative theory is for how this is really spreading, the super spreads and the just regular spreads, where you actually have N values greater than 1, R naughts, is not coming from casual person-to-person transmission. That's my guess. That when it's happening from fecal matter, and it's happening between intimates because, of course, you swap a lot of spit if you're intimate with someone. So that's my guess is that that's what we've got going on here. And there's nothing in the data, nothing that today suggests that I'm wrong. There's plenty in the data that suggests that all the people running around with their hair on fire about this thing being a super epidemic breaking out in the United States, show me the breakout. Even at a low exponential level, show me the breakout, folks. You can't find it. It's not there. So for now, that's where we are. I'm your ticker guy, and have a good day.